This week marked the 35th anniversary of the Game Boy in the United States, and in order to celebrate this iconic birthday, Nintendo decided to release a 2006 Game Boy Advance game that also came out on the DS. That's right, Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack subscribers are getting Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team, a dungeon crawler roguelike starring an amnesiac hero who gets turned into an adorable pocket monster. Yeah, that's cool news and all, but is this game actually worth playing? To answer that question, I decided to flip through the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Nintendo Power, and more classic magazines to see what the critics said back when this game first came out. Brace yourself, because there's going to be a major twist in this episode of Nintendo Switch Online Review Crew.
Can you lead a team? Can you solve the mystery? Can you find out why you are a Pokémon? Enter the Mystery Dungeon. For the first time ever, you are a battling Pokémon in Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Blue and Red Rescue Team on Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance.
So far on the Nintendo Switch Online, we have a Pokémon puzzle game, Pokémon photography game, Pokémon trading card game, and even a pair of Pokémon Stadium games. With all these Pokémon spin-offs, you might be thinking that there's nothing left for Nintendo to release. Well, think again, because here we have Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team on the Game Boy Advance. First released in 2006, this is a roguelike dungeon game where you explore randomly generated stages to not only find Pokémon, but also to regain your memory. On top of the fun amnesia plot, Mystery Dungeon is also historically important for being the first Pokémon game to be released on two different generations of Nintendo hardware at once. Red Rescue Team is the Game Boy Advance version, while Blue Rescue Team launched at the same time on the Nintendo DS. Well, that's certainly noteworthy. This release strategy ended up backing me into something of a corner. With both the Game Boy Advance and the souped-up Nintendo DS version hitting stores at the same time, do you want to take a guess which version the critics decided to review? Here's a hint. It's not the version that just hit the Nintendo Switch Online. That's right, everybody chose to review the Nintendo DS version because, duh. The good news is that the two games are virtually identical, give or take a few UI changes and some extra content in the DS version. This is one of those cases where we're going to have to turn to the Blue Rescue Team to see what the critics thought of the Red Rescue Team. If you want to know just how dire things are, Nintendo Power is literally the only magazine to review both the Game Boy Advance and the DS versions. And they didn't even bother to split them up into two different reviews. Giving Pokémon Mystery Dungeon a high score of 8 out of 10, Nintendo Power argued that the game is the best of both worlds, introducing a new style of gameplay while also managing to keep many of the elements that Pokémon fans know and love. Despite a few shortcomings, Mystery Dungeon will satisfy the needs of Pokémon fans while they hold their breath for the release of Diamond and Pearl. Mystery Dungeon is not perfect, but its robust and original aspects form a game more solid than many expected. While Electronic Gaming Monthly only reviewed the Nintendo DS version, I will give them credit for at least mentioning that the Red Rescue Team is basically the same game. That said, there is a real divide between the critics, with Brian giving the game a 6.5 out of 10 and describing it this way. Playing as one of these cute critters, you make your way through rounds of randomly generated dungeons, and unlike traditional Pokémon bouts that can drag on, all the fights here are quick. Don't think that this equates into repetitive button-mashing battles. You still need to think strategically when selecting from your ever-growing list of Pokémons and their signature moves. The real issue here is the resource management. For one thing, storing and retrieving items is too much of a hassle. And second, whoever came up with the idea of permanently losing your valuables every time you die should have their head examined. Ray disagreed, giving the game an 8.5 out of 10. Lord help me, but I can't get enough of this game! This Pokemon entry is a haven for soul-sucking leveling, although the typical series incentives have been stripped. But it's by sticking to the solid RPG basics that Mystery Dungeon delivers the addiction. EGM gave this Pokemon spin-off a solid 7.2 out of 10. Unfortunately, it's all downhill from here. Game Informer hated the game, giving it a 3 out of 10, one of the lowest scores they've given any Pokemon game. GamePro was also displeased, settling on a pitiful 2.5 out of 5. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a spin-off that looks like a Pokemon game, but doesn't quite contain the same sense of magic that was so evident in the originals. Like most spin-off titles, Mystery Dungeon fails to capture the spirit and replay incentives that made the core product so irresistible to gamers of all ages. If endless dungeon crawling is your thing, then you might want to give this title a whirl. However, if monotonous gaming and skimpy Pokemon action aren't your thing, then this is one mystery that's best left unsolved. Look, you don't need Detective Pikachu to figure out this case, because your enjoyment of Red Team Rescue is really going to come down to how much you like dungeon crawling roguelikes. These days, gamers might actually be more open to losing a great deal of progress with every death. But let me tell you, that's still a hard pill to swallow. The critics here either loved or hated this one, so give Mystery Dungeon a play and see which side you land on.
Whoa. Whoa!
Come on! We got rescuing to do!
Introducing the newest Pokémon. You, for the first time ever, you're a talking, battling Pokémon in the adventure Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. Only for Nintendo DS. Rated E for everyone. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team also available for Game Boy Advance.
Hey, thanks for watching me break down these classic reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post episodes that look just like this one every time Nintendo adds games to their online service. In fact, we have a whole playlist where we go through literally every classic game on the Nintendo Switch Online. Give it a binge if you have, like, 23 hours to spare. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite Pokemon game? Look, at this point it's clear that we're probably never going to get one of those mainline Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch Online, but hey, that doesn't mean you can't name one as your favorite. Let me see your picks in the comments below. We'll be back next week with not one, but 2 new Review Crew episodes. That's right, we're first going to take a look at the Arrow the Acrobat franchise, and then the Legacy of Kain series. Yeah, it's going to be a big week. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.